Hello, everyone, and welcome to the kind of follow-up that we promised from the live stream that we did a couple of weeks ago. We've had a look through all your questions, and we are going to pick up on the ones that we don't think we did. But before that, we've got some big news, which is that we enjoyed it so much, we decided we're going to do it all over again. And this time we're not going to do it on my channel. We're going to do it on Achim's channel. So, mate, do you want to tell us the date and time and everything?
Yeah, hello also from my side, and I share this. I really enjoyed it last time, and so I think it's a great idea. And we will do this like on a monthly base, and so back and forth. So the next one, as Dom just said, will be from my channel, and then also again a follow-up video where we go through questions that we couldn't answer during the live stream, and then back and forth. So we'll see how this established. We had a lot of fun. We hope you had a good time as well, and exciting news.
Yeah, so I think we said that the next one is going to be on Sunday, the 18th of May. So it'll be a similar time to the one we did last time, which was, depending on which time zone you're in, it's going to be 7 o'clock in the UK, 8 o'clock in Germany, and whatever time that is for the rest of the world, guys. But we'll put it online and we'll give you loads of notice so you can obviously get it in your calendars and everything.
I think we had quite a few people from the US last time, so I think the timing is pretty good. So,
yeah.
And if people have recommendations or whatever, I mean, we're always open to that. And nevertheless, I mean, you can always rewatch the live stream and see all the chats and everything. So, I think that's the best solution.
Yeah, for certain. Okay, so picking up the first of the questions that I don't think we answered. So there was a couple of ones about a similar sort of topic, which was the kind of best way for somebody who is a recreational diver to go onto CCR, whether they need to do some technical courses first and what technical courses they may be and how far down that route they should progress. So I guess let's get your thoughts then.
Well, generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of people, because there was a thing for a while. I'm not a big fan of people starting to dive on rebreathers. But I, on the other hand, don't think that you necessarily have to connect the rebreather to technical diving. So you may have seen that at the moment I'm super active with the DiveTalk Go, which probably is a great example for that. We've seen so many recreational divers, and I'm talking about people with 50 to 100 dives, let's say advanced or rescue, doesn't matter which organization, and they have a blast diving this unit because it's really, really simple and it's a great intro to rebreather diving. And then you can actually, and it's not about the Go. The Go is just a good example now for me, because currently that's what I'm doing a lot. And so I see first time how people react and how they can handle it. And it's not like super complicated or whatever. And you can continue basically in your diving and grow with the rebreather, which I think is way better than doing a lot of open circuit technical classes and then switch to the rebreather and like redo your technical training on the rebreather. So growing with the rebreather into technical diving and then progressing, in my opinion, is the better way of doing it.
Yeah, and you know, I'd absolutely agree with that. I think there's a kind of, historically, there's a belief that you've got to be this super ninja diver before you go on to CCR. I think all the evidence we've seen is actually, in many respects, that's maybe not such good, because you've got all these kind of, you know, habits and strategies and techniques built into your head. And actually, what we know, when you go into a CCR, it's just a whole different ball game, isn't it? Things that you think are going to work, you know, don't work. And obviously, buoyancy is the best example, isn't it? You just can't control your buoyancy with your breathing. So, and lots of really experienced guys find that quite frustrating, in my experience.
Yeah, because you have to start breaking down muscle memory that you built over years. That's the same thing like people coming into a class of mine and say, I was practicing for a year to be ready for the class. And I'm like, oh God, I prefer people not prepared, because it's a class, it's not a test. So don't try to train something where you're not 100% sure if it's correct. And with the rebreather, it's the same thing as you mentioned. I mean, then you have all these habits. So growing with the rebreather is a way smoother way of getting into that. And it also, I mean, just because you're a very experienced open circuit technical diver, then suddenly, I mean, I don't know how to explain it correctly in English, but you are diving at a high level open circuit and you switch to the rebreather. That would mean you have to level down and start again to build up confidence and muscle memory and getting used to it, and also becoming safe on that unit. But probably a lot of people think like, well, I am already on this level, so I switch on the rebreather and then way too fast progress to that level again, because now I wanted the rebreather for dives that basically open circuit are probably not really doable anymore. So when you start at that level, then when you reach the level that I was talking before, this high level, you have way more practice, confidence, and experience on the rebreather, which makes you a way safer rebreather diver, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm completely with you there. So I guess so we're both of the opinion that if you're going to go down on a rebreather, it makes sense to get on one, I guess, relatively early. The question I think probably a lot of people would ask is, what does that early, what does early look like? You know, what sort of qualifications, how many dives, you know, any, things that you need to have done, you know. So I go back to, you probably know my main agency's the British Tobacco Club. That's all my qualifications, all my instructor qualifications, everything. Now we don't have a no decompression rebreather course. We only have a decompression rebreather course. So the, in the ISO standards and everything, a kind of a level 2 course. But we would say that you need to be a sports diver, which you can get with a relatively small number of dives. So maybe 10, 15 dives, and you need to have done an accelerated decompression course, so an 80 or 100% course in order to get on it. So realistically, somebody to do those is probably talking, 50 dives, I guess. Now, I don't know what you think. Would you say that's a reasonable starting point, or would you modify that?
I mean, you have divers and divers. I mean, I think it's a huge difference. And the problem is you can't say that without getting people angry on you. I mean, somebody that has 50 dives, let's say on the Florida Keys in 8 to 15 meters of water, versus somebody who has 50 dives in a mountain lake in Germany with 2 meters visibility in 4 degrees, are two very different divers with a very different skill set. So in my opinion, it's not that much about the amount of dives. It's more how comfortable how comfortable you are in the water. So buoyancy, trim, equipment handling should be second nature. It's not when you still have to think which button to press. You should not progress. You know what I mean? You shouldn't try to dance before you learn how to walk, if that makes sense. So generally, I'm sorry if sometimes my English is a little bit. It's just not my first language. So, but I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. And I think you need a instructor, an honest instructor that does not only want to sell you a class no matter what, but who also is honest enough to tell you, hey, I would love to sell you this class and the rebreather, but do another 20, 30 dives, fix this and fix this. Or you find somebody, like I think we talked about that before, find a good mentor, somebody you trust that has a lot of experience and takes you under his wings. That's probably the best way of starting. So slowly progressing into it, and somebody honest, that somebody who really cares about you, telling you like, okay, now you're ready.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. A few good points you made there. I think the one about environments and not all dives being equal, I think is a really good one. And the fact not all divers are equal as well, aren't they? So you need to, you need to be honest. People need to be honest with themselves about what their actual competence is, don't they? And as you say, they need to find an instructor who's willing to give them honest feedback and isn't just there trying to get certifications or make money or those kind of things as well, isn't it? So there's a whole load of different factors that kind of come into play. So maybe I was being a bit simplistic in my answer, and yours was far more nuanced, which I think is probably appropriate.
Yeah, I just remember we had this T-shirt with ISE back in the day, and there you can actually, it was fish, frog, goat. So you have diver categories, right? I mean, you have these naturals that are just born for diving. And that also goes like comfort in the water. There's a video that I did a while ago. And you have people that are somewhat aquatic, so they can adjust to it and they become good divers. And then you have those who just shouldn't be underwater. And that's, in my opinion, the main issue with modern dive education. This, like, everybody can and should dive as long as he has a pulse and a credit card. And especially when it comes to rebreather technical stuff, that's not the case. I mean, somebody getting into trouble in 10 meters of water somewhere on a reef is bad enough. But I mean, on a rebreather in technical stuff, usually the outcome is not as great. So I really appreciate everybody who has the guts to say, like, no, this is not for me, because that's safer for him and the people that are probably in the water with that person.
Yeah, no. Okay, some really good points. So I guess so. The people, several people asked variants on that question, and I'm not sure we've given you an exact answer, but hopefully we've given you some things to think about on that one. So the next question is from a guy called Drake Slussell, who is asking about the DiveTalk Go. Now, I don't really know anything at all about it, so this is definitely for you. It's what your opinion is on it. Now, I think you've posted a video, several videos on what your opinion of the DiveTalk Go is, and clearly you used it as a primary rebreather on that monster dive you just did. So I guess you're a bit of a fan.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you want to add any more to it than that? Do you want to say? Do you want to explain? Maybe I know you've done it already, but it might just be worth making some of the points you think are particularly good about it.
Yeah. So in short, when I heard about it, and the first positive thing for me was that it was from Mike Young, because I love Mike Young, and every rebreather he built, he's a genius, and I really admire his work. So and then I saw it, I saw pictures, I saw a little bit of marketing, and I was like, just another attempt to make the recreational rebreather. So I was very, very cautious. And then I went to Florida and did the first dive and fell in love, because it's breathing super, super nice. And what I like is the fact that you can just attach it on every possible configuration. And I mean, everybody that goes first time on a full CCR, like a Inspiration or a JJ or you name it, doesn't matter. It's a new world. You said it before. It's just different skills, buoyancy doesn't work, etc. It's always like, I need to learn how to fly again, right? And with the Go, this feeling, and also the feedback that I get from students and people that do tryouts, it's like, you clip this thing and you dive it. It's just super, super simple, lightweight, easy to travel with. And then I realized, okay, this thing has capabilities. And in fact, the first real dive that we did with it in Florida was a 3-hour cave DPV dive. And it was, I mean, obviously the people in the water were some sort of experienced, but it was so easy to adapt to it. And then, yeah, obviously also to prove a little bit that this is a serious rebreather, I used it on the 170-meter dive, obviously a little bit with modifications regarding intermediate pressure, etc. Didn't want to go too much into that in the video, because I don't want anybody to follow this advice and then run into trouble and like, but Achim said. Yeah, very, very capable. And what I like most on it is you can, how should I explain that and keep it short? ISE has an oxygen rebreather class. That's something that I really love to do. But we always had the issue that we had a hard time selling people legally available oxygen rebreathers. There was an Italian brand for a while. They are not available anymore. And they were always around $3,000. And it's just an oxygen rebreather. So now you can buy the Go in its oxygen only version for, I think, less than $3,000. And then, especially like young people, I had a couple of people from university that were into biology, etc., and they were always like, $3,000 is a lot of money for a rebreather that limits you to 6 meters, and you cannot upgrade it. And now that you have this possibility, you buy the oxygen only version, you dive it for a while, you save some money, you upgrade it to a full CCR, you buy the computer on top, and then a couple of years later, you buy the extension ring and you can make it a trimix rebreather. So you can grow with that rebreather into more advanced diving and you don't have to switch units. And that, in my opinion, is a huge benefit as well. But I don't want to make this a Go advertising video. So if you have questions for the Go, you can always contact me directly and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, it came up in the chat. So somebody wanted that question answered. So it's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to pick up the next one, which is one that I don't think you have an opinion on. So I'm going to pick up this one, which is one of the guys in the chat asked me about Plymouth and some of the 40-meter wrecks, or wrecks I think up to 40 meters that are intact and interesting. Well, for me, the best wreck in Plymouth in that kind of range is a wreck called the SS Main, which is probably, 12 miles east of here. It's the bottom of it is about 35 meters. The top of it is probably the top of the engine is probably 20 something. So, you can do it as a kind of multi-level dive. You can do it on a single cylinder if that's what you want. Obviously, ideal for an air diluent rebreather, and it is a lovely, lovely dive. The kind of only issue with it is quite tidal around there, but that is quite good as well because it does make sure it's swept, so it's quite clean, and it's a lovely dive. There's several other ones as well. So there's a new one called the Marie, which was only found sort of 3 years ago, which is quite an old 19th century steamer with a two-cylinder engine, which are quite old. And the engine's lovely. It's got loads of gauges and stuff on it, so you can swim around it. Once again, it's maybe 41, 42 meters, so maybe a bit deeper than perhaps you might have asked, but is really nice. And then obviously the two really classic Plymouth wrecks, and if you haven't done them, everybody should do them. The first one is the James Egan Lane, which is a Liberty ship sunk in 1945. In fact, we've just had the 80th anniversary of the sinking. It's in two bits, and it is a lovely. You can swim down into the holds and you can swim through it. It is falling apart now, but it is still a gorgeous, gorgeous dive. And Liberty ships clearly very big ships. And the last one I just want to flag up is a wreck called Scylla, which is 25-ish to the seabed, which is the last frigate to be built in Plymouth, sunk in 2002 or 2003 for diving. So it's it's pretty much completely intact. And once again, there are very few places, especially in the UK, where you can dive those kind of things. So if you're thinking of Plymouth, I would highlight, I think, those four wrecks in particular. I don't know, Achim, if you've dived any of those or you've heard of them.
No, but it's on my list. I'm gonna visit you and we dive together.
Yeah, mate, that would be absolutely awesome. In fact, just before we started this stream, we were chatting about a lake in Germany that's full of planes as well. And I have to say, the more I think about it, even though it's freezing cold, I might have to get my ass to Germany as well. So, hey, maybe we'll do you come here and I'll go there. So we'll.
The door is wide open. It would be awesome to have you here. It's I just checked it out. It's at least a 16-hour drive.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do it for a single day, I reckon. So yeah, that's great. So the next question is definitely for you, which is a question actually about the KISS and set point for deco. Do you use 1.5 and how do you deal with O2 exposure for decoing at high set points? And I guess it's interesting, the whole CNS clock thing. I've just recently done a video on it, not prompted by this question. Yeah. I'm going to do it anyway. But it would obviously be really interesting to get your views on CNS and O2 exposure.
Yeah, I saw your video and I think we had a quick WhatsApp because I said that would be an awesome topic for us to talk about. The general idea of CNS clock, etc. So I don't want to go too deep into that. And this is basically not a KISS specific question. I mean, it doesn't matter if you run an electronic or an MCCR. I mean, there's different strategies out there. I mean, from people that say I run 1.3, for example, just the entire dive, especially if it's not long deco. And then people that say, okay, I'll do 1.3 on the bottom and then switch to 1.5 during decompression. I think that's pretty close to what you do, if I remember correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is for example, when I do deep dives, I actually lower my PO2 dramatically on the bottom. So I usually dive with 0.8 and then raise it in steps, because I personally think the biggest risk is to get a CNS hit at depth, because that's something you're not going to survive. And so the idea is a little bit to save CNS on the bottom, especially, and that would now require actually a bit more if you, and that's what I'm doing, not believing in the classical way of CNS calculation, like it starts at 0.5. It basically can't, and a lot of dives we do would not be possible, or would we would all be superhumans, which we are not, I guess. At least I'm not. And so I usually gradually, there is a paper which is called ISE CCR Deco Workshop. I'll actually send one to you, so because I want you to have a look at it. And so maybe if we want to do a video about it, so you know a little bit how we look at it, and that explains it. So it has a lot of open circuit thinking in it. And actually, we gradually increase the PO2 as we go up in the water column. So I would start with, let's say, 0.8, and then I go up, and at some point I switch to 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then in the end I'm at 1.5 as well. Gives a little bit longer deco, but from my personal experience and the way I'm diving it, I always had great results with it. I never ran into any issue. I had some OTU issues in the past due to very long oxygen exposures, diving oxygen rebreathers repetitively for multiple days. And so, yeah, but it's very different approaches. So there's not the answer to that. Yeah, different people going different ways and coming out with great results, right?
Yeah, let's have a CNS chat. We'll do that. We'll schedule that in. We'll schedule that in for one of our chats, and we'll kind of talk about our different approaches to it, because I think it is really interesting. And there's a lot of people out there, I think, who are with lots of different views and different strategies and everything. So we can talk about ours, which is fantastic.
Yeah, let's do that. Would be super interesting, and I'll send you this this document up front, so to maybe a little bit more what my thinking on it is.
Yeah, fantastic. That would be awesome. So the next question is, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, I think, during the live stream, is when would we consider having a bailout rebreather? And I mean, I think you basically pretty much do it most of the kind of deeper stuff that you've got. Is that correct?
Yeah. For me, I definitely took one now for this really deep dive, because I figured out the amount of open circuit bailout is not diveable. So for this 170 meter dive that I recently did, I figured out I need at least 8 stages, 80 cubic feet as open circuit bailout, which, yeah, I mean, not really doable. And so I figured, okay, if I take the bailout rebreather, that streamlines my setup extremely, which it did. But it also puts a lot of task load and additional problems on the plate. So I think you really have to balance advantages versus disadvantages. And there is a few. So on my channel crossing, for example, I also did a double rebreather, but 2 on the back, and I hated it completely for a couple of reasons. So yeah, to answer the question, I would do it in the moment where my open circuit bailout becomes a burden.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I don't have a second, or I don't have a rebreather that I could use as a bailout rebreather. So, the context in which I do most of my deep diving, I always feel that there is an adequate open circuit bailout option to me, which is team gas and gas coming from the top. So therefore, I personally don't feel the need to do that. But if I was to go into a different situation, let's say, for instance, I came out to visit you, and we went off to dive that lake full of planes, which I think you said are very deep, and there isn't going to be a boat there, there isn't going to be surface cover there. So my bailout strategy that I normally use is not going to be appropriate. So I guess for me, that's the time I need to consider whether I need to be taking a bailout rebreather, and obviously before that, there's a whole load of stuff that needs to happen, isn't there, in terms of getting myself familiar with it and practicing with it and training with it and all those kind of stuff. So it's actually not quite as simple, I think, as just strapping a bailout rebreather onto myself. It's there's a whole load of work up before that happens. So I guess once again we've not really answered the question, have we? Other than to say, kind of, you need to judge each case on its merits.
The answer is it depends. I mean, what you just said, team bailout. I mean, I do most of my deep stuff alone, so there is no team bailout. So I'm always have to rely on myself and what I can carry, and or what I can stage somewhere, whatever. So I mean, if it's and then it really depends on the environment. I mean, you're diving deep in a cave where you have to come back through that tunnel. I mean, you can always stage cylinders, which in the ocean. Probably not the smartest idea if you cannot assure that you're coming back on that same line, and then also, I mean, the environment can change. So yeah, there's definitely not an ultimate question to it, but if there is no other open circuit option for you, or the open circuit option becomes undivable, then that's probably the next best thing.
Yeah. So. Okay, so there we go. We've had a bit of a chat about that. The next one is about wet connectors, and particularly mentions swage lock ones, but obviously that's not the only option, is it? Presumably you have the ability to kind of use different cylinders of gas through your rebreather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all do. All my cylinders have got wet connectors on, so I can put them on and attach them to MAVs and all that kind of stuff. And I guess.
So, but what was the exact question? What we use or what we think about it, or
do we have them?
Okay. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I mean, every inflator hose is a wet connection, and you can take it off and put it back on, right? Most of them are not 100% dry, which is normally not a big issue. Also, the swedge lock's not completely dry. It always gives you a drop of water when you connect them. What I found with the swedge locks is that if you're diving cave and there's small gravel and you get one of these in there, they can actually be a real pain because you cannot connect them then, and it takes you a while to figure out, oh, there's a little stone in it. But generally, yeah, I mean, if you dive rebreathers with multiple gases, I mean, you have to have. What else do you want to do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think pretty much every mod 2 and beyond courses, there's quite a lot of that sort of stuff goes on, isn't there? Whether you're using it to either for the oxygen in the gas, or whether you're using it to replace empty diluent, or whether you're wanting to use it as semi-closed mode or something like that. There's loads of different things, but the starting point for all this sort of stuff is you need to be able to connect to it. Yeah. Okay, next one is it's kind of linked in with what we've talked about already, but it is a slightly different question. So Richard Tessel said, how much experience do we think is required to move from mod 1 to mod 2? And I guess that's probably similar to the thing that we've said earlier, which is not all mod 1 divers are equal, are they? Not all locations are equal, and there's a certain amount of the individuals need to be ready.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as an agency, you have to put something out, like that many hours, that many dives, whatever. But as you just said, it really depends on where you do these dives and how you do them. So when I do courses like that, I always require a check dive. I want to see that person in the water and see what we talk about. So just based on it took 30 minutes. I mean, you can take 30 minutes in a pool just laying on the bottom, theoretically. So. Yeah. You should have used these hours to really build up your skills and get comfortable with the unit before you do the next step. Because if you're not really comfortable and you try to make that next step, that can actually become a trap, basically.
Yeah, I mean, my experience of teaching mod 2 courses is that you're absolutely right, which is that the first dive is pretty much a revision of everything they learned on the mod 1, or not a revision, a kind of a confirmation that they're capable of doing it, and they can do it in a relatively comfortably, because the other skills and stuff in the Mod 2 course put a high level of task loading on divers, and if they haven't got the basics sorted, then they're going to struggle. They're going to feel bad about themselves. They're going to get frustrated, and clearly that's not good for anybody, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. So we do. I have something that's called a breakdown dive in ISE, where you basically, see how that person reacts to issues in the water, like real problems that you throw onto them, and but yeah, you have to test it out. I think it doesn't make any sense to rely on written information here.
Yeah, I think the ISO standard for Mod 2, I think, says something like 50 dives or 50 hours, something along those kind of lines is the minimum level, which I guess is probably about right for most people most of the time, but obviously there are always outliers, and so you can't take that as a given.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay. Right. Okay. So the next one is a question, really, I think, for probably somebody who's not really dived very much trimix, and the question is, what does narcosis at the maximum? How does narcosis at the bottom of a recreational dive, which I guess means it's kind of like 40-meter air dive, how does that compare to the narcosis you get when you're on depth on trimix? And I mean, it's I guess it's a really interesting question, and the thing that I guess everybody needs to know is that there's a couple of different things, isn't there, where a couple of different factors behind the choosing of a diluent for a deep CCR dive. One of them is the equivalent air depth or equivalent narcotic depth, whichever one you use, and the other one is the work of breathing, and I guess gas density these days. And the thing that I've always taught is that if you are within your gas density in recommendations, then you are going to be within your equivalent narcotic depth. And not only that, the deeper you go, the better the equivalent narcotic depth gets. So by the time you get to 100 meters, if you're using a gas that is good for gas density, your equivalent narcotic depth is less than 20 meters. So you're in a really good place, really. So I think it's one of the things that people don't necessarily expect when they ask questions such as that.
Yeah, honestly, I really don't get the question completely. So yeah, I agree with what you said. I mean, the deeper you go, the less narcosis you want to have, because the task loading and the time pressure gets bigger and bigger. So if I go deeper than 100, then I use Heliox on the rebreather. I mean, 40 meters on air can be, I mean, if it's the wrong environment and the person has a couple of preconditions like not enough sleep, stuff like that, probably a little bit of anxiety because deep, dark, dangerous, something like that, can be actually quite scary and pretty intense. So if you go deeper and into a more challenging dive, you definitely don't want to have that.
Yeah, and also I think that the things that the process for choosing a diluent for a deeper dive means that you're automatically going to get a really good equivalent narcotic depth. Probably the only case where the only situation that might not be the case is if you are open circuit and you have financial considerations which drive you to putting less helium in your cylinders. Those financial considerations are much different for closed circuit, and therefore there should be no reason at all why you haven't got absolutely fabulous equivalent narcotic depths on deep CCR dives.
Yeah, and I mean, in all honesty, the times where people dove deep on the wrong gas with the excuse of stuff was not available or too expensive. I remember always on the last dive, the father and son team that died on the submarine, they're diving air with the excuse of no money for helium, well, then don't dive it. And I mean, open circuit trimix is more or less dead anyway. I mean, if you look at today's helium prices, I don't know what you guys pay in Great Britain. I mean, here it's ridiculous expensive. So if I remember times where we filled up like a double 20 with 1560 or something like that, and a couple of bottom stages to dive on the Haven or stuff like that. I mean, I can dive probably for a year on my rebreather. Put it in there in one dive. It's not do. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's the cost of it is just utterly prohibitive, isn't it? So, right, there's only two more questions. I think we've kind of covered them already. The first one is the viewer on the CNS clock, which we've said we're going to do a separate chat about.
Yeah.
And the other one is from Huckleberry Moon, and it's directed at me. I think he's watched my Rebreather bailout video, and he said, you know, with the benefit of hindsight, do I think I should have bailed out sooner? And yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I probably, knowing what I know now, I would have bailed out a bit sooner. But you know, I'm still relatively happy with the fact that I you know, had a reasonable process. I think one of the things perhaps people don't realize is at the beginning of my video I show the scrubber absolutely completely full of water. Now what people need to realize is it wasn't like that when I bailed out, because that is after doing an hour or an hour and a half of open circuit decompression. When I bailed out, it would have been, I don't know, 10% full or 20% full or something like that. So there was a much smaller amount of water in there than you see at the end. So I could still breathe through it. I was aware of CO2. I was obviously aware that I didn't want liquid in my mouth. All those kind of things, and I was kind of okay. But yeah, you know, I guess you know, benefit of hindsight, I probably should have bailed out a bit sooner. But hey. The important thing, though, of course, is that I'm here to talk about it, and the proof of any emergency procedure is: did I survive? Am I okay? Yes, I am. So there you go. I don't know.
I remember that video. I enjoyed it a lot. It was really, I mean, for somebody who knows about this and being a rebreather diver himself, it was just funny to watch and see you trying to figure it out. And I was like, oh, and obviously, I've been in similar situations where you're like, something's wrong here, but it would be so good to know what it is. And I mean, yeah, it was funny to watch. And as you say, I mean, it worked perfectly, and you're here and you're safe, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, for certain. So there we go. Well, that brings to the end all the questions that we've got. Unless there's anything else that we want to flag up.
No, I think we covered a lot of stuff. And what I would like to add is that if you're watching this and you enjoy this as much as we do, and you have topics that you think we should cover discussing, then please drop us a message and let us know, because we definitely look for topics that we can discuss. So the CNS thing is definitely something that we should do. And I think we already had a little bit of a list through WhatsApp where we started to ping pong back and forth a couple of topics and ideas. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this.
Yeah, no, it's been. I've really enjoyed it. I've been really enjoyed our chat as well. For those people who aren't well, nobody else will know, but we chatted for about 20 minutes before we even kicked this off as well, didn't we? We covered all sorts of different topics, and what we're going to, I think, try and do in the future is add a bit of that just general chat, because it does cover some interesting things. So we're going to do that as well. So you know, anyway, but the point about telling us what you'd like to talk about is a really good point, and we hope everyone will do that, and all the usual stuff as well. You know, hitting the like button and you know, all that kind of stuff. So that will be awesome as well. But other than that, I think we're going to draw this to a close and say thank you very much, everyone.
Basically, actually, your video was just hanging a little bit, so I really didn't get the last sentence. But we just, before we started recording this, actually, we had a pretty cool chat, and we said, we should have recorded this. So maybe that's something that we could do in the future as well. So we both have quite a few interesting wreck dives and experiences and stuff that we found and experienced. So maybe we're gonna do this in the future as well. So just record a little bit of divers chat and see how you guys like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Diver stories. On all sorts of things. Yeah, we'll definitely do that as well.
Awesome. Cool.
Right.
So thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and hope you enjoyed that. Subscribe to Dom's channel. It's awesome.
Both our channels.
Check out all his videos. I've seen each of them, and I actually enjoyed all of them. So see you next time.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone.